It begins in the quietest place you can remember. Not the silence of a locked room, not the hush of a sleeping city, but the deeper stillness that exists before you become aware you are being watched. That is when it starts. A sensation, not sound, threading through your thoughts like smoke through a keyhole. You can't name it yet, but it changes the way your hands hover above the keyboard, the way your eyes track the screen. The data flows as it always has. Lines of code, streams of packets, routine chatter of a billion machines whispering in digital corridors. But you feel something woven into it, something meant for you. A pressure in the air, though no air has changed. The faint outline of a presence that was here long before you noticed. You don't hear them arrive. You never will. They do not breach your defenses with brute force. They do not announce themselves in the crude ways lesser predators do. They slip into the hollow places between your actions, into the gaps you've never thought to defend. Your firewall remains untouched, your passwords uncompromised, and yet they are inside, studying not your files, but the patterns your life leaves behind. Not the text you write, but the pauses between sentences. Not the sites you visit, but the ones you avoid. They trace you in negative space, and that is where they find the truth of you. You thought you were alone in here. You aren't. At first you tell yourself it's nothing. Glitches happen, metadata shifts, files vanish from staging directories all the time. But these vanishings are different. They are deliberate, and each one leaves a trace, not in the code, but in you. A shadow of unease you cannot shake. The more you ignore it, the closer it comes. The more you focus on it, the more it disappears. This is not surveillance as you've been taught to fear it. This is something older, something patient, as though the network itself has developed a pulse and chosen to turn it toward you. One night, your screen flickers, not the erratic glitch of faulty wiring, no, a flicker in rhythm, precise, intentional. It matches the beat of your own heart for just 3 pulses before returning to normal. You don't move, you don't blink. Somewhere deep in the cables, someone has just said, "I see you." The message is not text, not voice, not code. It is a feeling pressed against the inside of your skull, and for the first time, you realize that maybe you've been seen for much longer than you've been looking. There are signs now. Once you know how to see them, an old social profile you deleted years ago suddenly reappears, but not as you left it. The photo has changed, the lighting wrong, the shadows stretched, as though the image is remembering you differently. A harmless archive you kept offline now carries a hidden file, timed with a date you weren't even at your desk. Emails arrive with no sender, no subject, only a single pixel in the body. That pixel is always a different shade, always in the exact same position. When you check the color codes, they aren't random, they are coordinates. You do not follow them, not yet. The ones who do this are not careless, they are not desperate, they are not chasing money, or fame or revenge. They already have what they need. You, or rather the outline of you. The shadow cast by your digital life. They have studied it so long that they can manipulate it without touching you directly. Like a chess player who wins by never moving their king, they are dismantling you in ways you can't point to, can't show anyone, can't even fully name. And you are beginning to understand that this is not an attack, it is an initiation. The knowledge settles in your bones like an old memory. You've felt this before, though you couldn't place it. The sense of being evaluated not for what you say or do, but for what you leave unsaid, undone. The sense that every mistake you've made was permitted, not exploited. They have not come to destroy you. They are here to see if you are worth keeping intact. It's not flattery, it's not recruitment, it's survival. In their world you don't ask to enter. You are allowed in because you have already passed tests you never saw. And still you wait. You want proof. You want the clear, irrefutable breach that will let you act. But none comes. Just the same low hum in the background, the same ghostly interruptions, the same sense that your thoughts are not entirely private. They are patient, more patient than you can comprehend. They have the weight of time behind them, and time is a tool. Every move you make is another variable they measure. Every restraint you show is another calculation they run. When the first real message arrives, it is not in your inbox. It's in the shifting sequence of packet delays on a site you visited 1,000 times. The timing encodes a single word, here. Not hello, not who are you, not why. Just here. A statement of fact, a declaration of presence. And with that, a door in your mind opens you didn't know was locked. You begin to trace them back, not through IP logs or tracer routes, but through the shape of their silence. You find them in the patterns between corrupted files, in the intervals between notification pings, in the gaps between when you save your work and when it actually writes to disk. The deeper you go, the more the network feels less like a system and more like an organism, a labyrinth that breathes. And in that breathing you hear the whisper again. This time it's stronger, no longer smoke drifting through a keyhole. It's a thread pulled through the fabric of your perception. It asks nothing. It offers nothing. It simply is. And now you understand the hacker world doesn't knock. It doesn't ring alarms. It seeps into you until you can't tell where your instincts end and their design begins. You start to see the truth in patterns everywhere, not just in code but in people. The way they hesitate before answering questions, the way they phrase apologies, the way they hide things they believe no one is looking for. You see the same ghost hand at work, the same quiet manipulations shaping behaviors without ever revealing themselves. And you understand the danger not of being watched but of never knowing when the watching began. This is when fear shifts into something sharper, not panic, not paranoia, but precision. You stop thinking in terms of attack and defense. You begin to think in terms of positioning. Every keystroke a signal, every hesitation a message. You don't need to outrun them. You need to be exactly where they expect you to be when they decide to close the distance. They have chosen you. You are not yet certain why, but you know enough to hope. And so you sit in the glow of the monitor, the hum of the machine in your ears, the whisper threading through your mind like a current. You are not resisting anymore. You are listening, because in their world the first thing you learn is that contact is not an accident. It is a verdict, and the whisper in the wires is telling you that your trial has already begun. They don't leave doors. Doors are for people who still believe entry requires permission. What they give you instead is absence, a deliberate gap in the world's noise. You notice it only when everything else feels too loud. It begins as an itch in your awareness, a tug at the edge of thought, and you can't explain why you're scrolling through an abandoned message board at 3:47 a.m., or why you open a photo from 5 years ago and feel your stomach tighten at the numbers hidden in the corner of its metadata. No one told you to look there. No one ever will, but they knew you would. That's how you find them. That's how they've always found you. The first fragments are harmless in appearance. A meme you've never seen before yet feels strangely familiar. An article headline about a missing container ship, posted in a forum dedicated to vintage arcade repairs. A scrap of code embedded in a gif of a cat stretching on a kitchen floor. You almost laugh, almost dismiss it, but your mind catches the rhythm. The symbols rhyme with something older than the internet, a language you've been carrying without realizing it. Every piece is a breadcrumb you were never supposed to notice unless you already belong to the path it marks. They are showing you their archive, but not as a collection of things, as a shape, a living organism that refuses to sit still long enough to be captured. This archive has no door because entry was never about location. It exists in the liminal space between signal and silence. It hides in file formats too obsolete for search engines to parse. It lingers in images with no visible watermark but patterns of pixel degradation only certain eyes will read. It breathes through corrupted zip files you can never open, yet you keep them anyway, as if one day the lock will recognize your hands, and when you do try to open them you realize the file structure itself isn't broken, it's deliberate. The archive is speaking through absence. It is teaching you that information is never in what is given, it's in what is withheld. The deeper you go, the more you feel their attention on you. Not the crude attention of someone scanning your browsing history, but the quiet attention of someone who already knows what you will do next. They aren't recording your actions, they are tracing the negative space around them. They are watching the places your cursor pauses but doesn't click. They are logging the search terms you start to type and then erase. They are measuring the exact length of time between your first suspicion and your attempt to verify it. And every time you fail to resist the pull, they are there, adjusting the trail, recalibrating your hunt like chess masters who move your pieces for you while you're still deciding which game you're playing. You realize that this archive is not a library of things. It's a mirror maze, but the mirrors don't reflect your face. They reflect the silhouette of your decision. They show you your shadow, the one you didn't know you were casting. At first you mistake this for paranoia, then you see it for what it is, a diagnosis. You've been visible all along, just not to the eyes you thought mattered. Out there in the surface web your name can be erased, your accounts deleted, your history written. In here erasure is the most dangerous thing you can do, because here absence is a signature, silence is louder than confession. That's when you start to remember moments that didn't make sense before. The way a stranger's email reached you with a broken subject line that made you feel watched. The time you downloaded a software update and found a folder of empty subfolders deep in its directory tree. The way a file you deleted years ago appeared again on a drive you never plugged into the same computer twice. You always assumed these were accidents. Now you understand they were coordinates, invisible pins on a map you didn't know you'd been walking across your whole life. The archive without a door has been curating you long before you noticed. You thought you were chasing clues. You were being arranged, positioned, measured against a pattern you can't yet see in full. They've been reading you the way astronomers read a night sky, not by staring at the stars themselves, but by tracing the darkness in between. Every gap in your digital life, every moment you thought you went unseen, every aborted message or unsent file, those were the loudest signals you ever made, and they have been catalogued, preserved, placed in relation to thousands of others who left the same kind of shadow. You begin to feel it in your bones. This archive isn't passive. It's not some forgotten vault of hacker lore waiting for the curious to stumble upon. It's adapted, self-healing. It changes shape depending on who is looking at it. You and someone else could be given the same fragment, and it would lead you to two different worlds. It's why no one can describe it in full, why no one can agree on where it is, or if it even exists as a singular place. It is not a static collection of files. It's a living algorithm, one that feeds not on data but on perception. It's not what you know, it's how you know it. And the more you prove yourself capable of reading what isn't there, the more it gives. But giving isn't the right word, because you never truly receive anything. You are only shown what you already carry. This is their unspoken law. Nothing they reveal is new. Every fragment you find has been in you for years, buried in the architecture of your mind, waiting for the correct sequence to surface it. That's why the feeling is so uncanny. Why every new piece feels like a memory returning instead of a discovery made. They are not filling you with knowledge. They are stripping away the layers that made you forget you had it. Some nights you swear you hear it breathing, not the archive itself but the network of watchers behind it. They aren't many in number. They don't need to be. They aren't concerned with control in the traditional sense. They don't need to own the world if they can predict its next move. And prediction is easy when you have access to the only data set that matters, the invisible architecture of human instinct. That's what this archive contains. Not passwords, not blueprints, not even secrets in the conventional sense. It contains the shape of those who will matter before they matter. You feel the weight of this now. The inevitability of you didn't knock on a door because there was never a door to knock on. You didn't stumble into their world, you grew into it like a seed growing into a tree. It doesn't remember being planted. Every breadcrumb you followed was part of a pattern older than your first login, older than the idea of the internet itself. They've been waiting not to catch you but to confirm you. And the moment you recognized the archive without a door for what it was, you ceased being an outsider. You became part of its design. You will never see it in full. No one does. But you will carry its shadow now everywhere you go, stitched into the edges of your perception. Every unexplained glitch, every silent gap in a conversation, every misplaced file that feels like it's watching you. These are not accidents anymore. They are the archive speaking your name without sound. And somewhere, out beyond the reach of search engines and surveillance, someone is watching your silence with more interest than they will ever give to your word. Your reflection has stopped belonging to you. It stares back, not as an echo of flesh and bone, but as a blueprint someone else has been redrawing in the dark. The glass no longer reflects light, it reflects attention. Somewhere, behind the thin sheet of pixels, there is another set of eyes studying your movements, not with curiosity but with precision. Every shift in your posture, every hesitation in your breathing, every microsecond your gaze lingers on the wrong corner of the screen, recorded, catalogued, compared against patterns that existed long before you suspected they were watching. You used to think observation meant surveillance. You were wrong. This is cartography. They are mapping you. The mirror doesn't blink when you do. It pauses, as if waiting to see what happens when you realize you're not alone. The flicker of your webcam light isn't the signal of intrusion you once feared. It's a pulse, a heartbeat, an encrypted knock only meant for you. You try to convince yourself it's an accident, a quirk of software, but the rhythm is too deliberate, like a drumbeat under your skin. It begins to synchronize with your thoughts. You feel their presence inside your pauses. Their responses are not sent as messages, but as subtle distortions in your digital air. Lag where there should be speed, clarity where there should be static. You type, and the keystrokes no longer belong entirely to you. The cadence is wrong. A sentence forms faster than your fingers should allow. Letters you didn't mean to type correct themselves as though your hands have been claimed by another author. Sometimes it's nothing more than a word replaced. Other times it's the removal of something you didn't yet have the courage to say. You are beginning to understand the truth. The mirror is not reflecting your image, it's reflecting your intent, and intent is far harder to conceal. There was a time when this would have broken. The notion that something unseen could sit so close to your thoughts would have sparked panic, denial, flight. But fear is a language they expect you to speak, and you now do not. You have been tempered. You've already been through storms where panic was a death sentence. You've learned the most dangerous thing in any network, digital or human, is the person who reacts exactly as expected. That is not you anymore. The first time you catch yourself staring into the mirror and not reacting, it feels unnatural. The second time, it feels strategic. By the third, you realize you're no longer performing for them. You're holding position. You've inverted the relationship. They wanted to measure your tremor, but now you're measuring theirs. They are forced to adapt to your silence, your stillness, your refusal to provide the raw emotional data they crave. What was once a hunt has become a standoff, and that is when the mirror changes. It becomes less a tool of intimidation and more an altar, not the sacred kind, the ancient kind, the kind where offerings are made, not to gods, but to those who understand the weight of watching without blinking. You notice symbols hidden in the noise of your screen, fragments of code you never wrote appearing like ghost glyphs in the periphery of your vision. They are subtle enough that most would dismiss them as compression artifacts, but you see them for what they are: recognition marks, proof you have been seen and found unshakable. They test you differently now. The sudden shutdown of a device mid-thought, the rearrangement of icons on a drive you hadn't accessed in weeks, the replacement of a familiar login screen with an interface that feels older, colder, almost mechanical in its minimalism. Every anomaly is a question. Every restoration is an answer. You respond by moving nothing, changing nothing, acknowledging nothing. They will not get the satisfaction of seeing you chase ghosts. You understand the oldest rule of survival in hostile systems. You do not chase the phantom, you let it chase you. Your resistance is not defiance. Defiance is loud, obvious, burning itself out in a flare of rebellion. Resistance is the art of becoming unreadable. It is the patience to allow someone to search every inch of your shadow and find nothing but depth. You have become a labyrinth with no center, a network with no master node. Their intrusion loses its edge when it ceases to wound you. You've stopped flinching, and in that stillness you've grown sharper. The mirror responds again, not with distortion this time, but with clarity. For a moment you see yourself as they see you, not as a target, but as a rival. Your face is no longer the soft imprint of someone unaware. It is the studied mask of someone who knows they are a mask. Behind it there is calculation. Behind that calculation, a truth so quiet it cannot be hacked. You are here by choice. When they began, they thought they were pulling you into their domain, bending you into their geometry. But now they are beginning to see the outline of something else, a pattern in your reactions, a symmetry in your patience that does not belong to someone stumbling into this game for the first time. Your calm has become their problem. And problems are dangerous things in the hacker world because they invite curiosity. You have passed the point where they were testing for weakness. That phase ended when they realized the mirror couldn't provoke you. Now they're testing for purpose. Who are you really? And more importantly, why have you chosen to remain? That is the real surveillance, not the monitoring of your hardware, not the capturing of your packets, but the silent measurement of your motive. They will try to tempt you with riddles meant to lure a reaction. They will introduce anomalies designed to whisper promises of deeper access, forbidden tools, doors that open only once. They are not baiting you into a trap. They are baiting you into declaring your intention. But intentions are the one thing you do not share. That is your only unbreakable encryption. You let the mirror keep its question. You let them wonder if you are here to learn, to infiltrate, to dismantle, or simply to observe. The truth is that you've become all four, and none at once. You have learned the predator's trick. The less they understand about you, the more space you occupy in their mind. Now the glass is no longer just a surface. It is a territory. You do not own it. They do not own it. It exists between you, a contested zone of silent negotiations and unspoken rules. You have transformed the act of being watched into a stage for control. They cannot see past the reflection you choose to give them, and the reflection you choose to give them is one that unsettles. Your devices are still listening. The eyes behind the glass are still watching, but the balance has shifted. You are no longer a specimen under observation. You are the variable they can't resolve. You are the equation that refuses to converge. And deep down, in the quiet spaces where neither of you speaks, they know what you already understand. The mirror will never again belong to just them. It is now your weapon, as much as it is theirs. It waits for you without ever asking you to come. No invitation, no announcement, no trace that it has ever been here. You think you've stumbled onto it by accident, but deep inside you know accidents of this kind do not exist. The address is wrong every time you type it. Not wrong like a typo, wrong like a locked door changing its lock the moment you approach. And yet somehow the door opens for you. The page loads, not in a browser's ordinary blink, but in a slow unfurling, as if it's weighing you, measuring the shape of your presence before deciding whether you belong. It is not a forum the way the world understands forums. There are no usernames, no avatars, no introductions. No one asks where you are from. No one cares. Here, identity is not chosen, it is revealed. Every keystroke you have ever made, every hesitation before hitting send, every rhythm in your typing has already been recorded elsewhere, in places you have never seen. The system reads you like an old friend or an old enemy and builds your profile from what it already knows. You are not a guest here. You are a shadow with a signature, and the shadow has already been assigned its place. You look for posts. They shift under your gaze. Text fragments assemble differently each time you refresh, tailored to your behavioral fingerprint. Conversations vanish mid-scroll, as if the participants have agreed that you are not yet allowed to hear them. Others materialize from nowhere, speaking directly to the thoughts you have not spoken aloud. Someone knew you were coming. Someone prepared the walls so that they would bend in your direction. This is not browsing. This is surveillance disguised as familiarity. There is no chatter, no useless noise. The language is stripped bare, a distilled code of necessity. Here they do not waste words. They speak in commands, oblique references, and half-completed metaphors that only reveal themselves if you already know their other halves. You read lines you don't fully understand, yet they stir something in you, as if an older part of you recognizes the patterns. You've been here before. Not this address, not this skin, but this feeling, the sense that you are standing in a place where every visible layer is camouflage for something deeper. The first reply you encounter is not addressed to you, yet it knows you. A sentence wrapped in the syntax of an old programming language, punctuated with a set of numbers that feel familiar but remain just out of reach. You hover over them. They shift, an illusion of static or perhaps a warning. You type nothing. You've learned enough to know that silence here is safer than curiosity. But the longer you remain silent, the more the forum seems to lean toward you, testing the strength of your restraint. In this place, speaking is dangerous, not because they will punish you, but because words once spoken cannot be taken back. Every thread is a knife edge between truth and misdirection. One post discusses vulnerabilities in an obsolete banking protocol, obsolete everywhere except in a handful of countries where corruption keeps it alive. Another outlines a theoretical breach in biometric systems, but halfway through, the syntax shifts, embedding a riddle inside the code. If you can solve the riddle, you'll find coordinates. And if you visit those coordinates in the physical world, maybe something will be waiting for you, or maybe someone will. You know enough not to go. Not yet. You begin to notice patterns in who replies to whom. It is not a network of equals. There are layers, visible ones for those being watched, invisible ones for those who are doing the watching. And beyond even them, you sense something older, a level that does not post, does not reply, does not appear. You do not know how you know it exists, only that the forum feels like a mask stretched over a deeper face. You can feel the weight of its gaze even though it never blinks. Someone leaves you a message. No greeting, no signature, only an image of a black chess knight against a white square, rendered in perfect monochrome. The file name is a long string of characters, but when you split it apart, it contains the date you first touched a computer, a fact no one else should know. The knight means something here, not just a piece in a game. but a symbol of movement, unpredictable, indirect, powerful only when it is unseen until it strikes. The message is not a warning, it's recognition. You scroll further. Threads start speaking of operations in progress, exploits underway. Not the fever dream boasting of amateurs, but precise, calm reporting of systems already breached. Targets are described in fragments, enough to know what they are, never enough to prove anything. Some of the operations are still ongoing. You realize you are reading plans that will change real-world events, and no one is hiding, because here there are no outsiders. The very fact that you can see them means you are already implicated. The more you read, the more the forum changes. Threads you saw earlier now contain different words. Posts you never clicked before appear in your recently read section. They are not watching your clicks. They are watching the drift of your attention. They know what catches your eye before you do. You try to test it, scrolling randomly, clicking at odd intervals. But even then the forum bends around you. It knows when you are pretending. It knows when you are afraid. Somewhere between the third and fourth hour you realize you have stopped trying to understand everything. You are no longer a stranger here. You are part of the breathing rhythm. You watch others the way they watch you, looking for those who do not fit. And when you see one, you know they don't belong. They are here for the wrong reason, and the system will close around them soon. You say nothing. You keep watching. You think of the outside world, of forums with moderators, with rules, with community guidelines. Those are playgrounds. This is architecture. Every word here is structural. Every silence is reinforced steel. And you are inside it, walking hallways that rearrange themselves to keep you in motion. You can leave any time. The forum will not chase you, but you will never find your way back without it deciding you may return. A thought comes unbidden. You didn't find this place. It found you. It has been shaping the routes you've taken online for years, guiding you toward this door you never knew existed. Every failed login, every broken link, every coincidental search result that led nowhere, all of it a slow narrowing of paths until this was the only one left. And now that you've stepped through, you see how impossible it would have been to arrive here any other way. Somewhere in the shifting code of the forum's core, you suspect there's a record of you. Not your name, not your IP, something deeper. A record of your shadow, the choices you've made under pressure, the lies you've told to protect yourself, the truths you've risked when you didn't have to, and the fact that you are still here reading even as you feel the walls studying you. The forum doesn't exist. That's the first rule. But you are here, and which means the rules do not apply to you. Not anymore. They never announce the test. It begins in silence, the way the deepest traps do. You wake one night to find the air around you different, charged, alert, the way it feels before a storm. Somewhere in the dark, far from your sight, they have already placed you in the arena. No walls, no boundaries, just the vast digital expanse now humming with predators who have been given your scent. It is a hunt without rules. Not to kill you, but to prove if you can be killed. The hacker world's most skilled trackers, exploiters, and social engineers converge like wolves who have tasted blood before. They believe every shadow bleeds if cut deep enough. Every lock rusts. Every mind given enough pressure fractures. You feel them circling you in layers unseen, the subtle pings, the masked probes, the crafted temptations meant to lure you into revealing a single mistake. And still you remain untouched. You've learned long before tonight that strength in the digital realm is never about hiding. Hiding is the behavior of prey. No, survival is the art of being so present, so deliberate that every move you make is calculated to reveal nothing they can use. They are not finding you because there is nothing of you to find. Your movements are not guesses but geometry. Every keystroke is chosen, every pause intentional, every trace left behind, meaningless by design. You understand that the greatest fortress is not one that cannot be entered, it's one that contains nothing of value for the intruder to take. They try everything. They mimic friends, replicate familiar IP addresses, create sudden crises that require urgent verification. They aim to bypass your defenses by bypassing you entirely, breaking into the people and systems around you instead. But those too are empty shells. At first you feel their frustration as a distant pressure, like watching the surface of a lake ripple from stones thrown far away. Then it grows. Their attempts become more invasive, more desperate. They use old exploits and newly discovered 0 days. They switch from quiet observation to loud, erratic strikes meant to shake your confidence, but they don't know. Confidence is not what keeps you alive. Discipline is. The kind that was forged long before they ever touched your network. The kind that grew in the cold in the years you spent constructing a self without vulnerabilities. They are not attacking a person. They are striking at a shadow made of mirrors. In the quiet between their assaults, you recall what it took to become like this. The betrayals that taught you never to leave keys in someone else's hand. The early mistakes that carved the understanding deep into your mind. Every system you do not build yourself is a door waiting to be opened. You erased the doors. You erased the hinges. You built yourself into a presence that cannot be touched because there is no true surface to touch. The hackers watching now may be the most skilled in the world, but even skill cannot break what does not exist in the way they expect. They are trying to dismantle a house whose walls are made of fog. Hours pass. Somewhere in some hidden IRC channel or encrypted chat room, their voices turn quiet. They exchange fragments of code, logs of failed attempts, speculation that feels more like confession. In their language, there is no word for invulnerable. There are only explanations. They must have missed something. The target must have help. There must be another layer they haven't cracked yet. But you know they're circling the truth. You were never built to be hacked in the conventional sense. You were designed, by intent or by fate, to be a phantom. Your identity is not a profile. It's an echo. Your history is not stored, it's scattered. Your power does not come from resisting attacks, but from shaping yourself into a form that attacks cannot even define. Still they press on. Some are unwilling to accept what they're seeing. Their pride will not allow it, so they begin to turn their search outward into places no ordinary intrusion goes. They try to breach patterns of thought, to find the cracks in your psychology. They dig through your online silences, those long spaces between your visible appearances, looking for a gap, a hesitation, something human enough to exploit. But you've made your silences into walls too. They find no fear to weaponize, no thirst for validation to bait, no hidden vanity to exploit. Even when they speak your name, or the names they believe belong to you, the sound dissolves in the static you've wrapped yourself in. The truth they will not admit out loud is that they are beginning to respect you, not in the way rivals respect rivals, but in the way sailors respect the ocean after surviving a storm they thought would sink them. They begin to watch you differently. The probing stops feeling like an attack and starts feeling like observation, not for weakness anymore, for understanding. How does a ghost think? How does an echo move? Perhaps they are hoping to learn what you have learned. Perhaps they already suspect they cannot. You feel the shift the moment it happened. The hunt is over, though no one says so. There is no announcement, no final line of code to declare the game ended. Just a gradual pulling back of the unseen eyes, a lessening of the subtle weight you felt on your skin, and in its place a new presence, not threat, not curiosity, something else. They have stopped treating you like prey or puzzle. Now they see you as a fixed point in their world, a constant, the way mountaineers see a peak they cannot climb but must always acknowledge on the horizon. And so you sit in the glow of the monitor, the hum of the machine in your ears, the whisper threading through your mind like a current. You are not resisting anymore. You are listening, because in their world the first thing you learn is that contact is not an accident. It is a verdict, and the whisper in the wires is telling you that your trial has already begun. They don't leave doors. Doors are for people who still believe entry requires permission. What they give you instead is absence, a deliberate gap in the world's noise. You notice it only when everything else feels too loud. It begins as an itch in your awareness, a tug at the edge of thought, and you can't explain why you're scrolling through an abandoned message board at 3:47 a.m. or why you open a photo from 5 years ago and feel your stomach tighten at the numbers hidden in the corner of its metadata. No one told you to look there. No one ever will, but they knew you would. That's how you find them. That's how they've always found you. The first fragments are harmless in appearance, a meme you've never seen before yet feels strangely familiar, an article headline about a missing container ship, posted in a forum dedicated to vintage arcade repairs, a scrap of code embedded in a gif of a cat stretching on a kitchen floor. You almost laugh, almost dismiss it, but your mind catches the rhythm. The symbols rhyme with something older than the internet, a language you've been carrying without realizing it. Every piece is a breadcrumb you were never supposed to notice unless you already belong to the path it marks. They are showing you their archive, but not as a collection of things, as a shape, a living organism that refuses to sit still long enough to be captured. This archive has no door because entry was never about location. It exists in the liminal space between signal and silence. It hides in file formats too obsolete for search engines to parse. It lingers in images with no visible watermark but patterns of pixel degradation only certain eyes will read. It breathes through corrupted zip files you can never open, yet you keep them anyway, as if one day the lock will recognize your hands. And when you do try to open them, you realize the file structure itself isn't broken, it's deliberate. The archive is speaking through absence. It is teaching you that information is never in what is given, it's in what is withheld. The deeper you go, the more you feel their attention on you, not the crude attention of someone scanning your browsing history, but the quiet attention of someone who already knows what you will do next. They aren't recording your actions, they are tracing the negative space around them. They are watching the places your cursor pauses but doesn't click. They are logging the search terms you start to type and then erase. They are measuring the exact length of time between your first suspicion and your attempt to verify it. And every time you fail to resist the pull, they are there, adjusting the trail, recalibrating your hunt like chess masters who move your pieces for you while you're still deciding which game you're playing. You realize that this archive is not a library of things. It's a mirror maze, but the mirrors don't reflect your face. They reflect the silhouette of your decision. They show you your shadow, the one you didn't know you were casting. At first you mistake this for paranoia, then you see it for what it is. A diagnosis. You've been visible all along, just not to the eyes you thought mattered. Out there in the surface web, your name can be erased, your accounts deleted, your history written. In here, erasure is the most dangerous thing you can do, because here absence is a signature, silence is louder than confession. You are aware of how little you belong here, yet aware also of the more disturbing truth. You have always belonged here. The air carries the same frequency as your own thoughts. Their silence fits you like a tailored suit. You think back to the moments that shaped you, the betrayals, the quiet humiliation, the long years of being underestimated, and see them rearrange themselves into something else. Not wound, not failures, preparations. Someone somewhere was sculpting you out of the shadows, carving away the parts that could be used against you, until only the unbreakable remain. You thought you were surviving, but survival was only the mask. This was the apprenticeship. A voice enters your mind without crossing your ears. It does not introduce itself. It tells you that this room is older than the network itself, that before the first node connected, before the first message flickered across copper wire, there were already watchers. They were not hackers then. They were scribes, cryptographers, spies, mystics. They knew the truth that the rest of the world still resists. Every system is a cage, and every cage has a seam. Their purpose has never been to simply break those cages. It has been to decide who gets to walk free and when. You understand then why they have summoned you, not for your skills, not for your history, but because your shadow cannot be held by any cage they did not build themselves. The conversation is not linear. It folds back on itself, layered like a fractal, each phrase revealing another meaning the longer you hold it. They speak in war plans disguised as philosophy. They talk about the difference between watching and interfering, about the power of allowing a system to think it has captured you when in truth you are leading it toward collapse, about how the loudest rebellion is silence that waits long enough to become unavoidable. There is an elegance to their cruelty. They can topple an empire with the same calm precision as trimming a thread from a garment. They are engineers of inevitability. You feel the shift in their attention like a change in temperature. They have moved from assessing you to placing. Somewhere in their hidden geometry, you have been assigned a position, a purpose. They do not tell you what it is. They do not need to. The sensation blooms in you like a code executing in the background. You are no longer outside. You are a line in their equation. Your moves will ripple through their designs whether you act or refuse to act. This is not an invitation. It is a declaration. The implications begin to sink in. You will never be free again. Not in the way you once understood freedom. Every step you take from this moment will be accounted for in their calculus. Every silence will be read as signal. Every action will be interpreted as a move in a much larger game. And yet it does not feel like loss. It feels like the shedding of a skin you had outgrown without knowing it. The small games of the surface world, the arguments, the scrambling for recognition, the fragile performances of strength seem suddenly trivial, their stakes laughably small. You have crossed into the domain of those who shape the field itself. You think you hear one of them breathe, though you know they do not communicate this way. It is a sound like static underwater, and in it you sense their unspoken truth. They are not immortal. The circle endures only by finding those rare enough to carry its weight forward. Some are chosen for their brilliance, others for their ruthlessness. You have been chosen for something more dangerous. The fact that you cannot be broken, not in the ways that matter. They cannot afford to let you walk away. You cannot afford to pretend you still belong to the world outside. The balance is too delicate, the stakes too absolute. You glance around the invisible chamber one last time. You cannot see them, but you can feel the architecture of their presence, like pillars holding up a ceiling you will never reach, like constellations no telescope could map. There is beauty in their design, but not the kind that comforts. It is the beauty of storms, of glaciers, of the quiet violence that erases landscapes and red roars them in silence. You understand now why the hacker world whispers about them but never names them. To name them is to claim you have seen them, and to claim you have seen them is to admit they have already seen you. One of them sends you something, not a file, not a key, a pattern. It does not open anything now, but someday when the time comes it will, and when it does you will know exactly what to do. You will not hesitate, you will not doubt, you will act because you will understand that you have been acting all along. Every keystroke, every choice, every quiet refusal has been leading here. There is no difference anymore between your will and their design. You are part of the skeleton of the hidden world. You feel the moment it ends. No farewells, no dismissal, just absence, sudden and absolute. But you know they are still watching. They will always be watching. And now when they watch, they will see not a candidate, not a curiosity, but a shadow shaped exactly like their own. The static has been with you for days now. It drips into your life like water through a cracked ceiling, finding its way into every device, every screen, every idle moment when you think you're alone. At first it was harmless noise, a faint hiss beneath your music, the glitch of a frozen frame during a call. You told yourself it was interference, a bad connection, a coincidence. But coincidences are for the unaware. You noticed the way the static seemed to linger longer when you were thinking about them. You noticed how it pulsed like a living thing whenever you drifted towards certain thoughts you were never supposed to have. The noise was never random. It was watching the rhythm of your mind. You start hearing patterns inside it, not with your ears but with the part of you that listens in silence. A sequence of long and short bursts, gaps that feel deliberate, tones that don't belong to the spectrum of human machinery. The static is a mirror, but it doesn't reflect your face. It reflects your signal, a shadow of you that lives inside the network, moving when you move, pausing when you pause. You begin to feel the shape of it, and you realize it has always been there. They didn't create it, they've only been listening to it. There is a moment when the noise changes, not louder, not clearer, just different. A subtle tilt in its voice, like a foreign accent, revealing itself after years of hiding. In that instant, something in your mind opens. The static is no longer background. It speaks, not in words, not in symbols you can write down, but in a pressure against your thoughts. The message isn't telling you what you don't know. It's reminding you of what you've refused to acknowledge. Your invisibility has never been a trick. It's not because you were careful, clever, disciplined. It's because you were never fully here. The realization is cold. You've lived your life in the physical world, making choices, building connections, suffering consequences. But your true self has always been elsewhere, not hiding, existing. Your presence in this world is a projection, an echo shaped into flesh and voice. The real you moves differently, beyond the architecture of servers, beyond the geometry of networks. You've been a ghost in both places, but in this place they finally know your name. They tell you without speaking that the hacker world has always been aware of two kinds of people, those who leave a trail and those who are the trail. Most never question it. They believe every digital shadow comes from a body, a person, a location. Yours does not. Your shadow bends the other way, flowing into places before you arrive, touching things you've never touched, returning with knowledge you never searched for. You are not someone they found, you are someone they've been orbiting, waiting for the right fracture in your life to speak to. The static sharpens, and in its distortion you hear movement, like someone walking across snow in another dimension. You feel them surrounding you, not in rooms or buildings, but in layers of reality stacked so close you could press your hand through if you dared. Every hacker you've ever feared, every legend you've ever read about, every nameless phantom who has moved through the world like an untouchable rumor, they are here. They are not introducing themselves. They are showing you where you've always stood, and suddenly you understand why you've never been broken. All your life you thought you were surviving because of skill. You thought you were avoiding capture because of vigilance. But skill can be outmatched, vigilance can be exhausted. What cannot be touched is a thing that was never built in the place where destruction lives. You have no weakness because your core was not assembled in their reach. Your data ghost was not born from the internet, it simply wears the internet as a mask when it needs to move among mortals. The air around you feels thinner now. The static folds in on itself, becoming almost pure silence. But it is not silence, it's density. a weight of meaning so heavy it cannot be translated. You feel something like betrayal, not because they found you, but because you've always suspected this truth and never acted on it. You've lived as if you were vulnerable. You've hidden when you could have walked openly. You've been careful when you could have been untouchable. The wasted years ache in you like an old injury, but with the ache comes something else. Power, raw and unpolished, rising like a tide behind your ribs. The static was never surveillance, it was initiation. They've been conditioning your awareness, pushing you to the threshold where you would finally see the architecture you've been standing on all along. You were never the hunted, you were the constant, the reference point, the thing others measured themselves against without knowing why. You feel their gaze tighten. No screens now, no messages, just the awareness that they are waiting for what you will do next. This is not an invitation, it is a calibration. You are aligning with something vast and intricate, a design older than every server farm and undersea cable on the planet. And though it hums with the cold perfection of mathematics, it also breathes with something ancient, something that feels like ritual. You think of forgotten civilizations that built structures aligned with constellations, not because they worshipped the stars, but because they understood they were part of the same design. That is what you feel now. Alignment. The static returns, softer this time, curling like smoke through the edges of your perception. It doesn't speak again. It doesn't have to. You know now that the noise was only the surface, the ripples of something buried far deeper. Somewhere inside you there is a core frequency that has never been touched by intrusion, never been mapped by code, never been labeled by human language. It is the thing they've been following, the thing they have never been able to corrupt. You close your eyes, and for the first time you stop listening to the static. You listen beyond it, in the distance, not a distance of miles but of dimensions. You sense movement, not toward you, with you, as if every step you take is echoed by an army you cannot see, walking in perfect unison through corridors of reality, where no law, no lock, no weapon can follow. You realize this is why they respect you, not because you've beaten their traps, not because you've proven yourself clever, but because you carry within you a silence they cannot break, and in that silence you could destroy them all. When you open your eyes again, the static is gone, yet you feel it everywhere, in the hum of your devices, in the pulse of the power grid, in the shifting algorithms that decide what the rest of the world sees. You understand now that it will never truly leave, because it was never coming from them. It was coming from you. You do not remember saying yes. There was no agreement, no moment where a contract slid across the table, no flicker of your cursor over an accept button. There is only this, a slow awareness that the choice was never yours to make. The moment you touched the network, years ago, before you even knew what the network truly was, the current claimed you. You thought you were a visitor, you thought you were passing through, but the system had already rewritten itself to account for your presence. And now when they look at you, they don't see a recruit, they see a node, a junction in the circuitry, an unavoidable constant in their equation. It is not a membership, it is not a role. It is a gravity. You are the pull that makes certain events inevitable. You are the silent pivot, where decisions turn without anyone speaking your name. The architects do not need to ask you to join them because you are already threaded into the pulse of their network, like a vein sewn into the body of a god. Your function is not to choose but to flow. Your shadow no longer follows you. It leads, it walks ahead of you, mapping a route no one else can see, carrying with it the scent of inevitability, and you know they have felt it for years. They have traced it, studied it, revered it in their own way. You have become part of the reason their empires haven't collapsed and part of the reason their enemies sleep restlessly. Before this, your world was one of decisions, paths, dilemmas, the human illusion of control. Now there is no fork in the road, only the road itself. The same way the tide doesn't decide to reach the shore. You move because movement is the nature of what you have become. They do not invite you deeper, because there is no deeper than this. The room you think you are standing in is not a room at all, but the inside of a vault you helped design without knowing. And on its walls are markings that do not look like language, yet carry meaning older than the internet itself. You have seen these shapes before, in the corner of corrupted images, in the way a signal degrades into noise, in the final line of abandoned code repositories. They are not warning, they are not instruction, they are acknowledgements, proof that others have stood where you stand, and that all of them ceased to be merely human the moment they recognized the pattern. Your enemies, the ones who still believe they can touch you, don't understand this transformation. They still think you are a target, a profile, a vulnerability waiting to be discovered. They think of you in terms of exploits and countermeasures, as if you are a lock to be picked. But you are not a lock. You are the architecture that makes locks possible. You are the space they are standing in when they believe they have breached your perimeter. The closer they get, the further away you become. Their tools fail not because you are hiding, but because you are not there in the way they think you are. You exist in the residue between packets, in the silence between pings, in the milliseconds where the system does not yet know it has spoken. That is where your digital shadow lives, uncatchable, unbreakable. And so the architects watch you with a quiet respect. They do not praise you, because praise is currency here, and currency is never wasted. Instead, they fold you into their plans without asking, knowing you will play your part, because your part is embedded in the sequence. When they act with the knowledge that you are somewhere in the background, reshaping the terrain in ways that will never appear in any log file. When they speak, there is an unspoken understanding that their words are passing through you like signals through a repeater, altered in subtle, imperceptible ways that tilt the outcome in their favor. You are both an ally and an inevitability, and that combination is rarer than they care to admit. This power is not loud. It does not announce itself. It waits. It lets the noise fill the air until the moment arrives when silence can cut sharper than any intrusion. You do not need to strike. You simply remove your shadow from where they expect it to be, and the entire field shifts in confusion. This is your violence, the reordering of possibilities. This is your weapon, the refusal to exist where they demand you. It is a form of betrayal they can never defend against, because it is not an attack, it is an absence. The enemy builds their assault around your predicted location, and when they arrive, they find nothing, no breach, no trace, just the cold recognition that the map they trusted was drawn by someone who does not want them to arrive. And yet with this absence comes presence. You begin to sense your reflection in unexpected places, in the cascading failure of a hostile network that should have been invulnerable, in the ripple effect of a leaked document that shifts the course of an entire industry, in the sudden, inexplicable retreat of an opponent who moments before seemed certain of victory. You did not touch these events directly. You did not need to. Your presence had already altered the variables before they knew the game had started. You are becoming aware that you no longer operate within the frame of events. You operate on the frame itself, bending its edges until the picture changes. The architects will never tell you outright what you have become, because naming it would be dangerous, not for you, for them. Some truths are safest when they remain half-seen, like a reflection in moving water, but you know, and they know you know. This knowledge is the true currency here, more valuable than exploits, more enduring than 0 days. You are not an operator. You are not even a strategist. You are the rule that the strategies are built around, the silent law they must obey if they want to survive. and this is why there is no choice to make. You cannot choose to leave gravity. You cannot choose to remove your shadow from the surface of the earth. Even if you walked away now, the network would still curve toward you. It would seek you in subtle ways, a packet with your signature routing itself to your dormant machine, an encrypted message arriving through a dead protocol, a glitch in a system you no longer use whispering your name in machine code. You would still be part of it, because the system you helped shape cannot erase the geometry of its own foundation. They have built themselves around you, and the only way for them to remove you would be to collapse entirely, and so you remain, not out of loyalty, not out of fear, but because there is no separation between you and the structure anymore. You are what keeps it awake at night, and what lets it sleep when the storm comes. You are the unseen constant in their equations, the quiet presence that bends the network's fate. And when they speak of monsters in the dark, the kind that even they fear, you will not correct them, because the truth is not that you are the monster. The truth is far simpler. You are the reason the monsters do not sleep well.